There are 23 pills in that bottle. I counted them this morning. Counted them again before I sat down here. Not because I lost count. I never lose count anymore. I counted them because counting is the only thing that still feels like something I'm in charge of. 23, 6.25 milligrams each. Generic Zolpidem, CVS label, white bottle with the orange cap. Dr. Priya Nair reduced my dose 3 weeks ago, and I carry that bottle in my cardigan pocket most of the day, and I count those pills the way I used to count the children when we walked to the gymnasium, head by head, making sure everyone was still there. Jerry is in the backyard right now. I can hear the screen door every so often, the way it doesn't quite latch anymore. He asked me at lunch if I was feeling better, and I said I was, and that was approximately half true. I think the other half is why I'm sitting here instead of going out to be with him. He doesn't know I'm doing this. He doesn't know any of it, really. I want to say something carefully, because I spent 31 years learning how to say hard things carefully to people who couldn't always hear them. To say something true without making it feel like an attack. Ambien is a very safe medication. That's not a joke. That's what Dr. Michael Ferris told me in August of 2019. He's been our family doctor for 14 years. He knows my blood pressure, my thyroid history. He knew my mother before she passed. He said, "Beverly, it's a very mild medication, very safe, just to help you get back on track." And I believed him. Of course I believed him. I'd believed him about the blood pressure medication. I'd believed him about the thyroid. Why would a sleep aid be any different? I was 61 years old. I had just retired after 31 years in 4th grade at Stillwater Elementary, and I had a problem that felt, at the time, almost embarrassing in how small it was. I couldn't sleep. That was it. That was the whole thing. I lay in bed, and my mind did what it had done every August for 3 decades. It ran through class lists and lesson plans and which children might need extra support this year. Except there was no class coming. There was no first day. There was just the list, running on a loop in my head at 2 in the morning, filing through names of children I would never teach. 5 milligrams. Start with 5 milligrams. It's a very mild medication. I want to tell you something about 1997 before I go further, because it matters. I'm touching it right now, actually, this brooch on my sweater. Apple, 14-karat gold. They gave it to me at the district awards dinner in the spring of 1997 when they named me Teacher of the Year. Jerry took my picture 17 times in the parking lot afterward because I kept blinking. We went to Applebee's. I ate too much cheesecake. I wore this brooch to school every single day for the rest of my career. I wore it today. I always wear it. I used to think that was because it reminded me who I was. Now I'm not entirely sure it isn't because I need reminding. Here is what I know now that I did not know in August of 2019. Zolpidem is a Schedule IV controlled substance, the same category as Valium. The FDA, in 2013, 6 years before Dr. Ferris prescribed it to me, recommended cutting the standard women's dose in half because women's bodies process it 45% slower than men's. What that means, in plain language, is that what I was taking at bedtime was still very much in my system when I was driving to the pharmacy the next morning. Dr. Ferris did not mention that. In 2019, there was a black box warning. the strongest warning the FDA issues, specifically for complex sleep behaviors with zolpidem, sleepwalking, sleep driving, sleep cooking. Dr. Ferris did not mention that either. I'm not angry. I have spent a lot of time trying to figure out if I'm angry, and I don't think anger is the right word. What I am is, I keep coming back to a word I used with my fourth graders when I found out they had been given wrong information by someone they trusted. Misled. They were misled. I was misled. I have a system I used for 31 years that I called my grading rubric. Every student, every assignment, 4 columns. Exceeds expectations, meets expectations, approaching, and needs improvement. And the most important thing I ever told a parent at a conference, the thing I said every single year to every single family, was this: the goal is not the grade. The goal is accurate information. You need to know where your child actually is. You need to know where your child actually is. I think about that now. I think about it quite a bit because somewhere around year 3 or 4, 2022 maybe, after the dose had gone to 10 milligrams, I stopped having accurate information about where I was. Not metaphorically, literally. There were mornings I woke up and could not account for the previous 4 or 5 hours. Could not. There was evidence, the way there is evidence in a classroom that something happened while you stepped out, moved chairs, erased boards, a smell, but no memory of making it. The pots. I'd find them in the dish rack, washed and dried, in the morning. Jerry thought I was being helpful in a way I sometimes am, cleaning up after he'd gone to bed. But Jerry goes to bed at 9. I go to bed at 9:30 after taking my pill. There was no window in the timeline where I could have washed those pots, consciously. The refrigerator, open in the morning, not all the way, just a few inches, 3 or 4 times over a period of months. I thought it was Jerry. I almost said something. I didn't. And then the car. This is the one I keep coming back to. Other than one more thing I'll tell you in a moment. I had taken my pill and gone to bed. Jerry was asleep by 9 as usual. And in the morning when I was going to the pharmacy, the CVS on Hall of Fame Avenue, I went every 28 days like clockwork by year 3. And I want to tell you that the pharmacist, a young man named Marcus, started looking at me differently around year 4. Not unkindly, with the particular careful look that someone gives you when they know something you haven't said yet. I noticed it every time, and I told myself I was imagining it, and I was not imagining it. The odometer. When I got to CVS that morning, the odometer read 12 miles more than it had read the night before. Jerry had not moved the car. My daughter Lisa hadn't been over. There is one set of keys. 12 miles. I sat in the parking lot and I looked at that number and I thought, and I am not proud of this, but I thought, there must be an explanation. That is what we do, isn't it? We look for the explanation that requires the least amount of rearranging. But there was no explanation. There is only one explanation. I drove somewhere, in the night, after taking a sedative hypnotic, with no memory of it whatsoever. I drove somewhere, and came back, and went to bed. I never told Jerry. I told myself it hadn't happened again, and maybe it never had. And maybe I'd miscounted the original mileage. I hadn't miscounted. In 31 years of teaching, I gave a student a failing grade 41 times. I kept a log, not because I was required to. I kept it because I believed that every difficult conversation deserved a record, a witness, even if the only witness was me. I gave myself no such record. I wrote nothing down. The pots, the refrigerator, the miles. I registered them and then I let them dissolve into the explanation I preferred, which was, I'm fine. This is a very safe medication. I would know if something was wrong. I need to stop for a moment. I can hear Jerry out there. Sounds like he's working on the garden border, the one along the fence he's been meaning to finish since September. He does that, waits until October when the ground is cooler. He hates the heat. He has no idea I'm up here. He thinks I'm sewing. The machine has been on this table since 2018. This Singer, the quantum stylist. I spent $240 on it, and I was going to make quilts for all 4 grandchildren, and I haven't run a stitch through it since 2021. My hands shake now. Not terribly, not so anyone would notice unless they were looking. But a seam requires steadiness, and I don't trust my hands for that right now. I sit with my back to the scissors. That's not an accident. I didn't arrange this on purpose, or maybe I did. I'm not entirely sure anymore what I decide consciously and what my body just routes around. But the scissors are on the hook on the wall behind me, and I am sitting with my back to them. And I would like to tell you that doesn't mean anything, and I cannot. October 15th, 2023, 3:47 in the morning. I know the time because I looked at the clock on the microwave. That's how I know. Not because I was checking it. I looked at it the way you look at something when you're trying to understand where you are, and the clock is the first piece of information available. I was standing in the downstairs hallway. I had my sewing scissors in my hand, not folded, open. The blades open, the way you hold them when you're about to cut. Jerry was in Columbus. He goes every October to see his brother. He had been gone since Tuesday. I was alone in the house. I stood in the hallway and I looked at the scissors, and I want to tell you that I was frightened. I want to tell you that I screamed or dropped them or called someone. But I didn't do any of those things because I wasn't frightened. That was the part. That was the part that I have never been able to explain to myself, even now, even sitting here with Dr. Nair's number in my phone and 23 pills in my pocket and 9 months of trying to unschool what happened to me. I was calm. My heart rate was maybe 112 beats per minute. I know because I put my fingers on my wrist. I counted. That's what I do. But it was like the kind of heart rate you get when you've been startled, not when you've been endangered. My mind was not fogged, not exactly, more like freshly woken, the way a room feels when someone just turned on a lamp in it. And I was standing in my own hallway at 3:47 in the morning, holding open scissors, and I had no memory, not a fragment, not an image, not the sensation of getting out of bed, nothing. From the moment I'd taken my pill at 9:30 p.m. to that hallway, there was only darkness, and then there was me, standing there, perfectly calm, with scissors in my hand. I put them on the kitchen counter. I went back to bed. I lay in the dark for, I don't know, an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, and I thought, I will not think about this until morning. And in the morning, I picked up the scissors, and I walked upstairs, and I put them back on the hook in the sewing room. And I made coffee, and I thought, there is an explanation. There has to be an explanation. I never told Jerry. I have never told anyone, until right now. The FDA issued that black box warning in 2019 for exactly this: complex sleep behaviors, including sleepwalking and performing other activities while not fully awake. They updated the label. They required the warning. And my prescription was still being filled every 28 days without a single conversation about what my body might be doing between 9:30 at night and 7 in the morning. I want to be fair to Dr. Ferris. He is a good man. He delivered our youngest, Kevin, in 1989. He sat with Jerry and me when Jerry's father was in the hospital. I believe he was doing what he had always done, which was to prescribe what he had always prescribed, because it had always been considered safe. It's a very mild medication, Beverly, very safe. That sentence has been in my head for 9 years and 4 months now. I used to say it to myself like reassurance. I say it to myself differently now, more like a question, or maybe more like the thing you read on a test and realize you've been answering wrong the whole time. The rubric doesn't work anymore. That's the honest thing I keep coming to. I have been trying to grade myself on this experience the way I graded everything else in my life. Does she understand? Has she made progress? Is she approaching expectations? And the problem, the real structural problem, is that the rubric was designed for forward movement, for students who were learning, for performance that could be evaluated because the student was present for it. I was not present. I was taking 12.5 milligrams of a sedative hypnotic at bedtime for years, a dose that for a woman my age and size, the FDA now considers a recurring functional overdose. And my body was doing things, going places, touching objects, and there is no grade for that. There is no column on the rubric that says absent while present. There is no box that says student was in the building but not accounted for. I was in the building. I was not accounted for. September of 2024. I had read enough by then, up at 3, 4 in the morning anyway, might as well read. I had read enough to know that the medication was the problem. And I did what, apparently, you should never do, which is stop taking it. Just stop, cold turkey. I had half a bottle left, and I put it in the back of the medicine cabinet behind the Tylenol, and I thought, that's it, I'm done. Within 6 hours, I was shaking. Within 12, I couldn't form a sentence. Jerry called the doctor. Dr. Ferris by then knew something was wrong. We had had 2 conversations that year that I can only describe as conversations where I could see him realizing things. And within 24 hours, I was in the hospital. 3 days. I told the kids it was blood pressure. High blood pressure, nothing serious, just needed to be monitored. Lisa knew it wasn't blood pressure. She said she knew when she came to the hospital and saw my hands. She didn't push. That's Lisa. She holds the door open and lets you walk through when you're ready. I wasn't ready. I'm still not entirely sure I'm ready. But I have 23 pills instead of 28, and Dr. Priya Nair says the taper is going well, and I am sleeping 4 hours a night, and my hands shake, and I count everything, and I haven't driven after 9 p.m. in 11 months. I used to tell my students, I told them this every year, first week of school, every class. It was the closest thing I had to a philosophy. I told them, making a mistake is not the interesting part. The interesting part is what you do with accurate information once you have it. I believed that completely. I still believe it. The trouble is that for 9 years and 4 months, I didn't have accurate information. And I'm not sure, even now, that I have all of it. I'm not sure what else happened in those nights that I don't know about. I'm not sure what my body did in the hours between 9:30 and morning on the other nights. the nights nothing was out of place when I woke up, the nights that left no evidence. Those are the nights that are hardest to sit with. Not the car, not the pots, the nights that left nothing. Because if the scissors happened and left no mark, what else happened and left nothing? Jerry just came inside. I can hear him in the kitchen, the refrigerator, then the cabinet where he keeps his vitamins, then the water running. In about 10 minutes he'll come up to check on me. He'll knock on the door of the sewing room and he'll say, "How you doing, Bev?" And I'll say, "I'm fine, just resting." And he'll smile and go back downstairs. He has been married to me for 41 years. He knows every version of my face and voice. He will believe me. That is the part I have been thinking about since I sat down here. I was the woman who told a room full of 9-year-olds that honesty was not just the right thing, it was the only strategy that actually works. That hiding a mistake costs more than admitting it. I graded transparency. I gave A+ to children who could say, "I don't understand this and I need help." I am 64 years old and I have been married to a man for 41 years, and I stood in my own hallway at 3:47 in the morning holding open scissors, and I did not tell him. I did not tell him. I still haven't told him. There are 23 pills in my pocket and my hands shake, and I have 4 grandchildren I am not sure I ever drove near during a blackout. And there is a black box warning that existed before I was ever prescribed this medication. And I was the Teacher of the Year in 1997. And I wore this brooch to every single parent-teacher conference for 2 decades. And I don't have a grade for this. I don't know what column this goes in.